Evan, I want to ask you now about Kash Patel, because this got, both of these hearings got heated, this one especially, because the thrust of the questions from Democrats is not only qualification, but support for people involved in the January 6th insurrection, and other questions about retribution, and the list goes on and on. Let's just listen again to some of what happened in that hearing.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're gonna come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that a correct quotation, Mr. Patel?
Senator, that's a partial quotation.
But it's correct.
In part.
Regarding his publication of his enemies list, Mr. Patel proclaimed, "The manhunt starts tomorrow," and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me at the top.
If President Trump were to order you to open an investigation into any of these individuals, let's say Vice President Harris, would you?
Any law enforcement investigation, if I'm confirmed at the FBI, will only be launched on the following qualification: a factual, articulable, legal basis to do so. The president has said publicly that he will allow the FBI to remain independent, and I have said as much as well.
Evan?
Look, I mean, there's a time-honored tradition in Washington to, when you go before the Senate for a confirmation, that you distance yourselves from all of the wild things that you may have said on social media and in interviews. You know, Kash Patel, though, has done thousands of appearances on podcasts, and you know, part of his persona has been to be as provocative as possible. So what they're doing is they're just playing all of the things that he has said, and he is basically, as you can see there, he is trying to say that that is not him, does not represent him, and that, you know, he's trying to pivot back to his own experiences. And so at this point, it does appear that Republicans are pretty much firmly in line to confirm him, despite all of those things that you heard him say. And also, by the way, I mean, he is now, the boss is someone himself who has said really, you know, outrageous things, and he got elected president of the United States. So, I mean, what is supposed to happen to Kash Patel, right?
I mean, with both of the nominees that you've put forward there, Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, we're getting at the core of what you said about the boss, which is, you know, the FBI and the intelligence services in this country. This is the very heart of the so-called deep state that Donald Trump believes was against him from the start back in 2016 and onward. He blames these universes of government workers for a lot of his own personal legal jeopardy and pain and all that he has had grievances about very publicly. And he clearly is putting in people who are aiming to be real disruptors to those organizations. Here's the difference. You just noted it. Republicans, they're not bringing up Kash Patel's past statements that some of them in private will tell you they thought are a little off the wall too. They are sort of lining up behind Patel and believe bringing that kind of disruption to the FBI is critical. Gabbard is another question right now. As you saw Mark Warner allude to, Chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Tom Cotton, and his thoughts about Gabbard, and what has been made clear, that if Gabbard doesn't, by John Thune, the majority leader, if Gabbard doesn't get out of committee, he doesn't see her getting a vote on the floor for full confirmation. So this is now about not just Republicans broadly, but the Republicans sitting on the Senate Intelligence Committee, if they are fully aligned to take someone they have questions about in this role and advance her because she is Trump's nominee.
And John Miller, just to bring you back in, you mentioned your experience in the intelligence community. You also were an assistant director of the FBI. You have years of experience in both of these areas where these individuals are being nominated, as David said, very clearly to disrupt them in various ways. Each of them explicitly said that they believe that they are the right person or people for the job because they believe that they were victims of, I'm going to use the word deep state. Words deep state, they didn't necessarily use them, although Kash Patel did in his book. But that's sort of the thrust of that. Can you talk about their nominations through that lens?
So we're looking at the same thing in both cases when it comes to the core questions that are being asked by people in the law enforcement community, people in the intelligence community, and frankly, between the FBI and the ODNI, where those communities cross over. A large part of what the FBI does is intelligence-based. The summary of that kind of question was enunciated by Senator Mark Warner at the beginning of the Gabbard hearing when he said, he cited the law that said that the intelligence community, DNI, needs to have significant experience in the intelligence community. It's in the statute that created the job. And he said, and I quote, "We need serious people with sufficient experience," raising the question, was that her? With Kash Patel, you switch over to the same question, which is, Robert Mueller was the head of the criminal division at the Department of Justice before he became the FBI director. He had been a prosecutor, a line prosecutor before that, and a significant attorney. Louis Freeh had been a federal prosecutor and then a federal judge. The same with William Webster. So when you have somebody who is coming out of a number of government jobs and policy positions coming into the FBI director, or someone with no significant experience in the intelligence community as DNI, the core question, and David has mentioned this before, is, are we picking people who Donald Trump feels will be intensely loyal, even if they are very barely qualified when compared to others?
You have some new reporting. I think we have like 15 seconds. So I want everybody to look at it online, but real quick.
Real quick, I mean, we know the FBI Agents Association met with Kash Patel recently to ask him to essentially to spare agents who were assigned to the January 6 cases or the Trump cases. He didn't give any reassurances that he would not target those people once he got confirmed.
I mean, that's okay. I've said it was quick, but apparently we have 20 more seconds. That's really key because people are part of the big theme here is retribution, including people who are
Which
going
he
to be working
has
for
spoken about in the past. And today he was asked a question about this, and he said FBI agents will be held to absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments. Agents have already been getting threats for working on cases related to Trump, so we'll see what happens.